Normandy, July 1944. A sergeant pounds a silent Sherman as a hidden gun spits fire, and 30 tons of steel cannot hear the men it was built to save. He is crouched by a hedgerow older than kingdoms. 6 feet of packed earth crowd with hawthorn and elm. The tank sits just yards away, hatches sealed, engine thundering at a roar louder than a jet. Inside, 4 men are locked in a metal box with a periscope and a handful of slits. They hear their own intercom. They hear their own radio. They hear nothing else. Somewhere behind that wall of green, a machine gun has been chattering for the last 90 seconds. The infantry sergeant can see the muzzle flash in a farmhouse window. The tank cannot. He waves. He shouts. He throws dirt at the commander's hatch. It stays closed because the last man who opened it here took a sniper's bullet through the forehead. The gun keeps firing. And between them stands the problem that will kill more Americans in the bocage than any German tank. Not the Panther, not the 88, not even the Panzerfaust. The killer is silence. The United States had built something no other army possessed, the separate Tank Battalion, 65 of them by war's end, not tied to armored divisions, created to fight with infantry divisions, step for step, field for field, steel and flesh together. The idea was elegant. Tanks would smash strongpoints with high explosive, infantry would see, guide, and maneuver. Each would cover the other's weakness. On paper, it was the most sophisticated partnership in the world. But inside the Sherman in 1944, something simple and brutal intervened. The radios did not speak the same language. The infantry carried the SCR 300 on FM. The tanks used the SCR 508 on AM, on a different band entirely. They were as compatible as a telephone and a flashlight. Once the first shots cracked and the hatches came down, the 2 arms became 2 separate armies. They could fight in the same field, under the same shells, and still be deaf to one another. The tank crews tried to improvise. Some crammed the infantry's handy-talkie inside the hull. The tank's electrical noise smothered it. Others lashed spare tank radios to wooden boards and handed them to company headquarters. Heavy, scarce, slow. The official answer, the AN VRC-3, was rare in Normandy and solved only half the problem. An officer with a matching set could call a tank, a private in a ditch could not. So men waved and hoped, and in the hedgerows, hope was not a tactic. The bocage turned every field into a box, 60 to 100 yards, walled by earth and brush. A tank pushing through a gap saw the far bank and nothing else. The infantry saw the things that killed tanks, the anti-tank gun at the corner, the Panzerfaust team sliding along the hedge, the machine gun covering the breach. But they could not pass what they saw to the crew. Again and again, the pattern repeated. The tank thrusts into the field. The infantry is pinned by fire. The turret searches blind. The Panzerfaust strikes from 40 yards. The crew has seconds before the ammunition cooks off. German officers notice the shift in fear. General Lieutenant Richard Schimpf of the 3rd Parachute Division recorded that his young men were losing their dread of the American tank. A Sherman without its infantry was not a predator. It was prey. And that stark truth reached the desk of Colonel Duncan, commander of the 743rd Tank Battalion, in the first week of July. He summoned his operations officer, Captain Edward Miller, a signal soldier by trade. Fix it tonight. Between sunset and sunrise, Miller built a solution that fit inside an empty ammunition box. The EE-8 field telephone had been in service since 1938. A black handset, a magneto ringer, a simple voice circuit that needed no batteries to speak. Every company had them. He stripped the phone from its case. He wired the handset into the tank's intercom, the same network the commander used to speak to driver and gunner. He placed the phone in a .30 caliber ammunition box. He bolted that box to the rear hull. He ran a wire through a small hole in the armor. That was all. At first light, he showed Colonel Duncan. The battalion sent Captain Robert Spears to the 30th Infantry Division with the prototype and a proposal. The division embraced it and passed it to 5th Corps. Within days, ordnance teams across Normandy were welding ammunition boxes to Shermans and pulling EE-8s from supply dumps by the dozens. Any rifleman could walk to the rear of a tank, open the lid, pick up the handset, and speak directly into the commander's ear. Picture the first time it worked. A Sherman with a Rhino cutter punches through a bank near St. Louis. Infantry pours in behind its steel teeth. Machine gun fire lashes from the right. The tank begins to traverse left, guessing wrong. A sergeant runs to the back, lifts the lid, and says 6 words. Machine gun. Right side. Tree line. The turret swings. The 75 fires. The gun falls silent. Half a minute from contact to suppression. The day before, that same scene cost minutes and blood. This transformation arrived on the eve of Operation Cobra. After 7 weeks of grinding advance, the breakout began with the heaviest carpet bombing of the war. The shock of those blasts reached even friendly lines and took the life of Lieutenant General Leslie McNair when bombs fell short on the 30th Division. When the dust settled, the Shermans of the 743rd moved with 2 new tools. The Rhino that let tanks crash through hedgerows without showing their bellies, and the telephone that let infantry eyes direct armor fire in real time. Together, they formed a system. Before a breach, a rifleman spoke into the handset and told the commander what he could see or could not see. The tank burst through. The infantry flowed around it. If a gun opened up, the man on the phone called the target. If a Panzerfaust team moved, the phone rang before they reached a firing spot. Each field fell in minutes, not hours. The Sherman, once blind, now seemed to see through walls. German troops felt the change before they understood it. The technique that had killed Shermans by early July stopped working by month's end. Tanks were pausing at hedges. They were engaging positions invisible from inside a turret. Panzerfaust teams died at 100 yards instead of living to close at 40. What had changed was not visible from the front. It was a small metal box at the rear. When German officers examined captured tanks in August, they opened that box and found a standard handset. A wire into the intercom. Simple. Obvious. And in their framework, baffling. A panzer was commanded by a trained specialist who spoke to peers by radio. Orders flowed through ranks. In that design, a private did not tell a tank what to do. Yet here was a machine that invited any rifleman with a free hand to lift a phone and direct a 30-ton gun. The reason was not equipment. It was a different map of trust. In the German model, the higher the rank, the better the picture. In the American model that emerged in the hedgerows, the best picture belonged to the man closest to the enemy. The sergeant who could see the muzzle flash. The corporal who had spotted the anti-tank gun. The private gripping the handset with mud on his face. The telephone made his voice the shortest path to firepower. There was something else in that box. Speed. German innovation often flowed from the top, from the Waffenamt to the factory, from the factory to the field. Thorough, precise, and slow. The American phone did not wait. A captain built it in a night. A colonel approved it in a morning. A division endorsed it that day. Within 2 weeks, it spread laterally across a beachhead because any crew who saw it could weld one on their own. This pattern echoed in the Rhino cutter. Sergeant Curtis Colin fashioned it from German beach obstacles. It was tested in front of General Bradley, approved on the spot, and replicated by ordnance companies cutting up the Atlantic Wall to clear Norman fields. In the Pacific, Marine tankers on Saipan welded their own phone boxes to M4A2s at the same moment. 2 oceans apart, 2 branches, the same problem. The same answer. Not by order, by recognition. The 743rd stayed with the 30th Infantry Division from Normandy through Mortain, where the division held against a desperate counterattack that sought to cut the breakout and earned a grim nickname from the enemy. Through Belgium in the Siegfried Line. Through the Ardennes, where they fought elements of the 1st SS Panzer Division around Malmedy and Stoumont and La Glaise. Across the Ruhr and the Rhine, to a rail siding near Farsleben in April, where a light tank crew found boxcars filled with 2,141 prisoners from Bergen-Belsen abandoned by their guards. The tankers and infantry secured the train, fed the starving, and guarded them until safety was certain. By war's end, the battalion had lost 96 Shermans, 141 men killed, 22 missing, 316 wounded, total casualties equal to its strength. Captain Edward Miller survived. He did not write a memoir. His family kept the story, and decades later it surfaced in the quiet corner of a website dedicated to the Sherman tank. The improvised phone did not remain improvised. By late 1944, new Shermans carried factory-installed infantry telephones. After the war, every American tank kept one. The Pershing, the Pattons, the M48 and the M60. For 40 years, it was as standard as the gun. Then the M1 Abrams arrived without it. Radios seemed to make the phone obsolete. In 2006, in Baghdad and Ramadi, infantry again found themselves crouched behind tanks, unable to speak through a turbine's roar. The Army issued the Tank Urban Survivability Kit. On its rear hull, an infantry telephone returned. The same handset, the same location, the same wire into the intercom, the same lesson learned anew. The Germans could not explain the phone because it did not solve a German problem. Their system placed the tank at the center and the rifleman in support. Their communication flowed from the top. In the Norman hedgerows, the United States welded a different idea to steel, that the man at the bottom, closest to the danger, might hold the clearest truth. A telephone in a box, 20 feet of wire, and the quiet revolution that turns silence into victory.